It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions.
Touchdown, San Diego!
Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to Hacksaw's Headlines as we head towards a great sports weekend. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host John Riley from our studios in San Diego. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center stores, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. If you've got projects, they've got materials. If you need ideas, they can be your best friend. DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. Holy cow, have we got a lot of late-breaking stories. We're going to go a lot of different directions on this podcast, and when we're done, we're going to ask the fans to co-host, because today might be the biggest newsworthy day we've had in the 200-plus podcast we've ever done, because all the stuff is happening right on top of us. How are you?
Doing good. I mean, you just came in. You're coming in hot today. I could already feel it. He's like, dude, where's the air conditioning? Turn on the AC. Are you ready to go?
I am ready. Couple of business items. You're all on social media. X marks the spot. I want you to become part of my Twitter All-Star team. Just follow my handle, @Hacksaw1090. Hit follow. Want you to be part of my team. Every time I put something up on X, you'll be aware of it. Second item, I write an absolute ton of stuff on my website every day. It's all written. It's there every morning. If you've never read my website, you're really missing something. Just go to leehacksawhamilton.com. It's there every morning. Want you to share. Tell your friends what we do Mondays at 1 p.m., Thursdays at 1 p.m. Want you to subscribe. Thereby, once we put something up on the YouTube channel, and we do that a lot during the course of the week, you'll get the alerts as to what's going on. And when we're done with this podcast today, you take over the podcast. John Riley, just tell the people on live stream how Fans Forum works.
How Fans Forum works. It's your chance. You've got a question or comment for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Just type it in the live chat on Facebook, on X, or on YouTube. We'll get you involved. Looking always for first-time callers, long-time listeners, right?
You got it. A lot of topics to talk about. John, let's talk about what happened late last night, what happened early hours this morning, and what just happened late morning in San Diego.
Yeah, it finally went down. The Aztecs, are they in the Pac-12? Is this real?
San Diego State is now a card-carrying member of the Pac-12 Conference. Story broke right before midnight last night. I spent an hour and a half in the middle of the night networking with people to try to find out some of the financial pieces of this equation and why it happened now, how it happened right now. Big day in Aztec history, I think. Or is it not? There's an awful lot of history here. San Diego State has always wanted to be in the, quote, Pac-12. They did a great job becoming one of the flagship schools in the Mountain West Conference, which just celebrated beyond its 25th year, and now they're walking away. And it's all about money, and it's all about location, and it's all about growth and potential down road. There's lots of different ways to view this. I'm going to just look at some of my notes because I just came from the Aztecs press conference. Everybody can be excited, I guess. And I say I guess because this is not the Pac-12. This is not the Pac-10. This is not what was the Pac-8. I'm not going to be negative. I'm just going to tell you this sure feels like Mountain West Conference 2.0. I don't see a big difference there with the Aztecs, Boise, Fresno, Colorado State, joining Oregon State, Washington State. I don't see a big difference there to what we have here, which is the Mountain West Conference, which they dominated. Now, the Aztecs are of the opinion, and the press conference was long and the press conference was very pointed, of the opinion that this is about the future, that this is the potential to grow this thing, that you should not view this as cup half empty, because, Lee, it's not the Pac-12 or the Pac-10 or the Pac-8, but to view as a cup half full because there is enormous potential to grow the conference with brand new media partners, and that's why they think this timing is right. Here are the specifics. The 4 teams that are vacating have to pay an $18 million exit fee. I got to confirm today the Pac-12 is going to pay a piece of everybody's exit fee of the 4 schools.
Cool.
Pac-12 will pay the Mountain West Conference $43 million, a release fee to allow the Aztecs, Boise State, Fresno, Colorado State to leave. I didn't like this. San Diego State is forfeiting all of its NCAA basketball unit money they've gotten in tournaments. Over the next 5 years, they stay in the Mountain West Conference. The Aztecs are giving that up.
Wow.
San Diego State gets full voting power on all business going forward in the Pac-12 conference. San Diego State will also have input at the table on the next 2 schools they're going to add, or if they go to 4 or whatever the expansion number is going to be. It's not going to happen next week. It's going to be maybe a year and a half from now. Confirmed that San Diego State did talk to the Big 12. The Big 12 expressed interest in the TV market size, but was only willing to give San Diego State a half-share media rights. John David Wicker told me this morning, if we had gone in there, we'd be below water. We would not be getting the type of revenue money that we needed to compete with the Oklahoma States and the Iowa States and all those guys. Why would we do that? We'd be looking up from the bottom of the standings of those guys because we wouldn't have the resources to compete, and we weren't going to go just to say we're in the Big 12. Travel expenses added on would have been very different. NIL money, how are they going to compete there? That's why they did not further pursue the conversation in the Big 12. They didn't like the layout. They went to the Pac-12 because they're going to get a full boat share of whatever the new TV contract is. And that contract might be with Fox, which wants a West Coast presence, might be with CW, which is now expanding its portfolio of intercollegiate athletic conferences. So they think this is the right time to be on the ground floor to grow this thing. And John David Wicker and the president both admitted to me this morning, San Diego State was at death's doorstep when the Pac-12 imploded, the Mountain West had all these problems, NIL took over, the transfer portal ran amok. They were in huge trouble. But what they decided was to put their nose to the grindstone, and they were going to work through each of the crises and throw COVID into the mix, each of those crises, and find a game plan and a solution that would get them there. He said, we're not going to grieve about it. We're not going to be pissed off about it. We're just going to go to work and deal with it. 4 years later, they are now a member of the, quote, Pac-12 conference. So they're going to have 6 teams to start. They got another year to go add 2 more. That might be Cal. That might be Stanford, who wake up and realize going to the Atlantic Coast Conference wasn't a good decision. I don't know if UCLA gets brains beat out in the Big Ten and says we made a mistake. Maybe we should go back home to the West Coast. But they're going to add 2. Maybe it's somebody from the American Athletic Conference. You know, it's too bad BYU isn't available any longer because BYU would have been a nice geographical, legendary fit. But that's where they are right now. So I guess I'm asking San Diego State fans, friends, alums, and I'm going to ask you too, John, good day to be excited, or is it anticlimactic because, yeah, it's the Pac-12 brand, but hell, it's not the Pac-12, and it's not the Pac-10, and it's not the Pac-8. And maybe I should apologize in front. I feel like the glass is half empty. Yes, maybe the glass will be half full going forward down road with all those creative things that J.D. Wicker talked about that they hope to put in place to grow this thing at a faster pace. So, John, you tell me where you are emotionally here with the data I gave you, or where you are emotionally in terms of what the Pac-12 used to be and maybe what they could be with the Aztecs in Boise and Fresno and CSU part of this.
You could be kind of grumpy sometimes.
Thank you.
And maybe you are a little bit. There's a lot to digest here. I have a million questions, but to answer specifically, what's my emotions right now? I'm thinking, all right, San Diego is getting a little bit more legit, you know, as a sports community. And this finally happened. They've been talking about Aztecs going to the Pac-12 and whatever version of the Pac whatever. And now it finally happened. So I'm right now still, a little cautious. Is this going to be like the Big East thing and it's going to blow up on us, And then I have questions about who else should come and other questions about the Mountain West. But generally speaking, I'm feeling optimistic. And I think if I'm a player on any of the sports programs at San Diego State, you have to be thrilled because this is bringing everything up a notch or two. We can argue how much higher, and you don't have to go to Wyoming anymore. So those are all big wins.
I asked the president, is there any ache in your heart that the flagship program in the Mountain West has turned its back on all these other people and left for money? Are you any different than what USC and UCLA did in the middle of the night? And I thought this was really eerie. This stuff happened between 11 and 12 last night, and I found out about it.
Of course.
That kind of looks like the middle of the night money grab. And I just asked, does your heart ache? And her response was, we have great relationships with the Air Force Academy and with Wyoming and the ones that have been left behind, and we will work with them. But at the end of the day, we had to take care of ourselves, and that's where the quote, we were at death's doorstep at one point. That's why this happened. It was financially driven, and it's driven in a belief that there's a better future ahead as this thing starts at square one, and they're going to rebuild it because there's much more media interest because there are many more media players out there. Does that answer your question?
That's part of it. But I don't think you can ever shame an organization or an individual for going for the money, okay? Mm-hmm. Because that's what they're worth. I mean, that's their value in the marketplace. And so, if you get a new job and they're paying you more, I'm not going to shame you for it. I'm going to congratulate you. And the same thing here with San Diego State. Is it a, quote, money grab? No, it's just getting what they think they deserve. And now they're going to have more dollars to fund the program, more dollars maybe for NIL. I mean, just all these resources are going to make the program better. That's good for the Aztecs. That's good for Oregon State and Washington State, too.
Oh, definitely. Where are you going to go get other teams?
Now, this is other part of my angle here, because it's interesting that they left off UNLV, which I thought should have been in it because that's a pretty decent media market. I was surprised they weren't included. But yeah, who's left? I mean, I've heard some people chattering on social media, well, in basketball, maybe we add St. Mary's and Gonzaga. That's a clever idea. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot of options, at least in the two Pacific and the Mountain time zones. Like you'd have to go to SMU or something, right?
Yeah, I concur. And that being Central Texas, but that's not West Coast. That's the Midlands. And I don't know that works by going into the American Athletic Conference and trying to cherry pick somebody. Mm-hmm. Somebody told me today, Texas San Antonio. Why? What national clout do they have?
Right.
Yes, in terms of Vegas, there's a lot of chaos at UNLV's leadership.
Oh.
I think there's a big issue about UNLV academics. And yeah, they're located in Sin City, which has now become a destination point for events. But do they draw well? Do they draw big? No, not since Jerry Tarkanian left.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So the academic thing is one of the reasons that they're not part of this mix. I don't quite understand why the Air Force Academy, which has enormous credibility, why they could not be part of this mix. But maybe it's a dollar situation. Maybe they wouldn't be competitive in the big picture of that time. They hope to grow this into a bigger time conference. And the rest of the Mountain West people, they may be players, but they're not players at that next level.
Yes. I mean, like who else is left? I mean, you'd really have to start to dig deep. Are some of the schools in the Big West, could potentially take a step up, like a UC Santa Barbara? Hey, why not a UC San Diego? You never know.
I think the most fascinating thing, and this will take time to dig out, is your idea, and this is not the first time this has surfaced, just go cherry pick Gonzaga, St. Mary's, University of San Francisco, and put them as a basketball-only member.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, that would make a ton of sense. And the Dons, the USF Dons, they have a great history.
So
yeah,
that's where we are right now. Okay, let's get somebody who's a San Diego State fan, friend, and alum. I want you to just go into the chat box here. Give us a reaction, like, dislike, cup half full, cup half empty. Did they miss the boat on this? Because This is not your dad's USC or your grandfather's Oregon, Washington, Pac-10, Pac-8. Thumbs up, thumbs down, what just happened? Or were they better served to stay where they were really good and they did have a lot of arch-enemy teams that they played that you could identify with? Boise, Fresno, Wyoming, to a degree Vegas, etc. New Mexico's gone. So somebody join us in the fans forum. There's got to be a San Diego State fan, friend, and alum. I want you in the chat box to join us with an opinion on this. Go, John.
Yeah. So, geez, I was about to ask you this important question, and I can't remember what it was.
Turn
the heck
around.
with that. Yeah.
I'll slap you in the back of the head and knock you out.
My brain's fried. Let's
Your
go.
brain's fried. What about my brain? So that's where we are. I've been here forever covering the Aztecs, broadcasting the Aztecs through good times, bad times.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask.
Back in 1990, at the height of the Marshall Faulk era, back when they were drawing, and I was broadcasting in front of 48 to 52,000 on Saturday nights for 3 years running, I thought San Diego State had arrived, and I thought they're going to knock at the door, and they're ready to go through the door and become a member of the Pac-10. Never, ever happened because the Trojans and the Bruins blocked them out. Now they've arrived. But my heart says this is anticlimactic. They've arrived, but none of the marquee names are there for them to partner up with and to compete against. I just have a strange feel about it. Not that it's going to fail, but I don't feel the excitement that San Diego State tried to sales pitch me at the press conference this morning.
It's so much better than the Mountain West. I mean, the Mountain West was just sort of like a little sister league, It was never at the level. Now, granted, I don't know if this Pac-12 thing is going to be a Power 5 conference. Hopefully it will. The thing I wanted to ask, and Danny on the chat kind of reminded me of that, we'll get him involved in Fans Forum. Will Cal and Stanford come home? Is that a possibility?
I've been told that this is going to turn into a boondoggle. And again, they went to the ACC at a reduced amount of media money. They did what San Diego State said, we're not doing. We're not going to the Big 12 and take a share of the money and get our ass kicked and take on all those expenses. And how are we going to compete? They went that way. I've been told that it might be after 2025, maybe there's a release clause to get them out of the ACC. Maybe this is going to be a debacle, and they'll come back. I think that's the seventh and eighth member at least that'd be out there.
Yeah, that one makes a lot of sense. And those are great great history. And the sports programs are a little shaky lately.
Okay, all-time San Diego State fans. We've never had Aztec fans jump on board here in the Fans Forum. I know there's a lot of people following us right now on social media. Give us your response to that storyline. We go from college athletics. By the way, the Aztecs go play at Cal. The Aztecs now have an issue because the quarterback, Danny O'Neill, is continuing to wear a knee brace and is not doing very much in practice. We may have a new quarterback in Berkeley for the Saturday game. Javance Johnson, A.J. Duffy are quarterbacks 1A, 1B behind Danny O'Neill. And Cal's a pretty good team. They lead the world in pass interceptions. Justin Wilcox has done a phenomenal job flipping the Golden Bears. They won at Auburn. They won in front of 88,000 War Eagle fans at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Cal won at Auburn. I didn't see that coming. Nobody in the world saw that coming. So the Aztecs are going to Berkeley to meet these guys who are coming off a win at Auburn.
Right on. Yeah, this is a great showdown. And they came up short against Oregon State. I always thought the Cal game was a more achievable win. But, yeah, after winning at Auburn, holy crap.
Who could have seen that? Okay, we go from college athletics. Next topic on the table.
Padres baseball. Man, I was a little worried about the maybe potential perfect game last night.
Tell you what, Padres are scuffling a little bit. Their starting pitching right now is not what their starting pitching was during the phenomenal hot run of July into August. Are you concerned? Should you be concerned? Because right in the rearview mirror, Arizona has just jumped over them in the standings, and right behind them, the raging hot New York Mets, and just beyond that is Atlanta. A couple weeks to go in the season. Can the Padres hit their way into the top wild card spot? I think it's critically important because otherwise you're going to go on the road in a wild card. And even though they play well on the road, if their pitching's not holding up, it's an issue. The question I was going to pose about Padre baseball, if I could ask you one word to describe Padre baseball this entire season, and I think, John, it's been a summer of fun. I think it's been so cool to watch Petco is a destination point. The record number of sellouts, they're going to bust maybe to 3.4 million fans, which is phenomenal. If I could ask a word to describe Padre baseball, would it be resilient? Would it be egoless? Would it be deep in a dogfight? What word would you use to describe the summer of fun we've enjoyed?
It's definitely not ego. The ego driven part of it, I wouldn't take that. To me, it's like I'm thinking it's like a roller coaster. It's like the stock market graph. It's raging up and then it's falling down, and you're going back up again. And right now we're at the peak. And actually, no, we've kind of tailed off a little bit on a roller coaster ride. That's what it feels like for me. But overall, the trajectory is up, and so I think as a Padre fan, I'm thrilled. But remember the first half of the season, they would win 2, lose 2. We were constantly going back and forth. It's just
they lost to really bad people, too, in chunks of time. And you thought,
yes.
Same old.
Yeah, so this has just been an emotional roller coaster.
Okay, we go from Padre baseball, next baseball team to talk about, and I got an in-depth evaluation here we're going to discuss.
The L.A. Dodgers, are they going to fix this pitching problem?
We've seen every type of physical malady that could impact a Dodger pitching staff. And now the latest. Anthony Banda gets knocked around coming out of the bullpen, gives up runs, cost him a game, walks into the clubhouse and punches a wall and breaks his pitching hand. Left-handed setup guy who had pitched pretty well for them. Stupid. Yash Yamamoto pitched last night, 4 pretty credible innings. No stressful innings, struck out a bunch of guys. Tyler Glasnow has had 3 bullpens. He will throw a sim game Friday. Tony Gonsolin is throwing a rehab start in Oklahoma City, so they're still looking for help, and maybe they think there's another starter or 2 that's going to show up. But with Banda doing what Banda did to his left hand, he's now the 19th pitcher on the DL, and they've had 13 starting pitchers on the disabled list. It's absolutely amazing. Okay. Let's go through the list of names here on the board. I'm going to give you some background here. Andrew Friedman is under siege. Andrew Friedman's response to the media inquiries about what's happened to Dodger pitching: we will evaluate from top to bottom. We will philosophize what we should do differently when we onboard pitchers, onboard them through the draft, develop them, onboard them through trades, how we deal with them, onboard what their rehab should be. He says there should be no one-size-fits-all going forward in how we treat our pitchers. So there's going to be a total reevaluation in the aftermath of 19 pitchers on the DL, 13 starting pitchers on the DL. LA Times did a really cool investigative enterprise piece in which it said the Dodgers are the epicenter of the pitching crisis in Major League Baseball. Do you know since 2021 season, the Dodgers have gone to the disabled list 98 times in 3 years for pitchers who were injured.
98?
98. Now, that's guys multiple times.
Still.
It's 98 guys have been placed on and off the disabled list over 3 years. And then the question was posed to Walker Buehler, the once ace of the staff, who's really struggled badly coming back from his second surgery. Walker Buehler said, they teach us max effort. We have to decide to do it to succeed. We know we might get hurt. I am willing to cross that bridge when it happens. I need my high-end stuff. If I get hurt, that's fine. It's what we do. That's Walker Buehler's philosophy based on the Dodgers' input that they've given those guys. And here's the scoreboard that does not lie. Dodger pitchers on the disabled list. Dustin May has been on the DL 605 days. Walker Buehler has missed 456 days of games. Tony Gonsolin, 382. Young pitcher Emmett Sheehan, 167 already. Michael Grove, 143. And Ryan Pepio, before he was traded, 129. I mean, that's a phenomenal number of missed days on a Major League roster. So you got the Dodgers, the epicenter of baseball injuries. Their pitching staff is a catastrophe, and they're still in first place. So, John, I threw a lot of data at you. Your response to Friedman, the evaluation, your response to Walker Buehler, that's fine. This is what I do.
Well, first, I got to straighten you out. It's not the disabled list anymore.
I know.
It's the injured list. We have to be politically correct.
No, not here.
I'm just joking. Anyways, Mark Pryor has been the pitching coach there for how long now?
4 or 5 years, maybe.
Okay, so this 2021 98 pitchers, that's all on his watch, right?
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's his fault.
No, but who sets, the Dodger way? It's obviously the GM, but you would think that Mark Pryor, the pitching coach on the major league team, would be the one that would kind of lay out the pitching philosophy for the whole organization.
Well, I think they take whatever comes from upstairs and say, this is how we're going to implement it at every level, from Oklahoma City down to AA to Class A, et cetera. But the phenomenal number of pitchers are broken down. So the question is, do you ban your pitchers from throwing sweepers? Do you ban your pitchers from throwing this unique slider that puts unbelievable pressure on your elbow? Do you preserve your pitcher that way? Because if you do that, according to Walker Buehler, if I can't throw my stuff to be successful because they're banning me, then how can I be successful?
Yeah. It's good that they'll take a scientific approach here, right? Like they have that lab at Point Loma Nazarene, and that'd be a great place to figure this out. But we all know that it's been max effort, and it's been burning these guys out. But the Dodgers historically have had a really good pitchers that usually they never break down. I thinking of like Don Sutton, pitched for 1,000,000 years.
Yeah, but that was a different era where they threw a fastball and a curveball and a changeup, and they're not throwing this wicked stuff that tears your arm apart. So, it's a fascinating thing. The Dodgers have become the epicenter of the pitching crisis in all of Major League Baseball. If you're a Dodger fan, we'll invite you to jump on board. Give us your opinion. We got topics on the table. Fans Forum chat box is open for you. Please take part. We're one of the few in the country that allow the people on live stream to jump into the water with us and give us some opinions, ask questions, take a shot, make a statement. Fans Forum box is open. We get to halftime. This podcast, as we go towards a great sports weekend, is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. You walk through this castle here that John Riley owns, and there's brand new kitchen, tile floors, cabinets, amazing. You walk in the hallways, there's bookcases, brand new Italian ornate door.
What do you think this place is?
It's a castle. And to come to my place, I got new doors and I got new windows, and my house inside is nice and cool. All this is a byproduct of these guys, DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. And if you got projects, they've got materials, you want ideas, they'll provide that too at DIXIELINE. We're at halftime here, heading towards a great sports weekend, our Thursday podcast. Couple of reminders. If you like Twitter, social media, I want you to join my Twitter all-star team. My handle is @Hacksaw1090. Hit that. Hit the follow button. I put a lot of stuff up on Twitter, including Hacksaw's mini polls. Want you to follow me. We're trying to rebuild this thing, get my group up over the 10,000 mark. So follow me on Twitter. If you like sports, have you ever read my website? And I know there's a zillion websites out there. Mine is different than anything else in San Diego. Check it. When we're done with this podcast, just go to my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Look at the different pages of all written content I have. Look at my one-man's opinion columns. Yeah, you might get pissed off, but you'll like what I write most of the time. So that's the website. Check that every day. We want you to share, text, email, message all your friends. Tell them that we do this unique podcast Mondays at 1, Thursdays at 1 p.m. Want you to subscribe. That way you will get an alert every time we put something up on the podcast. And then when we're done with this, and for those of you who are just jumping on board, maybe new to our podcasts on Monday and Thursdays, when we're done, we do this thing called Fans Forum. You get to take over this podcast. John, just explain it to him.
Well, before I do, I want to just say something. You are the hardest working man in sports journalism, and I mean that, because there are a lot of people in sports media. They're either TV, radio personalities, or they're podcasters, or they're writers, or they're something else. I mean, you're all of that, and you're still doing it, and you're still going down to the Montezuma Mesa for the Aztec press conference. You come rolling in here hot to do the podcast. It's awesome. So if you got a question in the world of sports for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, this is your chance. Type it in, your question or comment in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved.
And if you want to replace me, you can apply for the job too. That's okay.
Well, I don't think you're replaceable.
Okay, we go to the second half. Boy, we got some hot things here to talk about.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill. Boy, this story just keeps unfolding.
That's a great headline because at the end of the day, that's what this situation became. This became a routine traffic stop that he turned into a racial incident. And the story is not going away. The background is he got stopped outside of Hard Rock Stadium, home of the Dolphins, on the way to the game on Sunday morning. And he was doing, I was told, 76 in a 35 zone. So he got pulled over by the motorcycle group. And he's got driving a state-of-the-art Tesla. Dark as Africa tinted windows. You can't see inside the vehicle. So the police are standing there, and he doesn't roll the window down. So they tap on the window. No response. They tap on the window again. And the response is, quit tapping on my window. Police officer says, roll this window down. So he cracks it a little bit. You could hardly see him. Police officer says, I need you to roll this window down. I need to see your driver's license. He rolled it up. He tapped on it again. Tyreek's response, just write me a ticket, bro. He tapped on it again. He rolled it down, and he said, if you don't roll this window down, we're going to take you out of this car. He rolled it up. Second cop came in, opened it, hauled him out. Now, at that point in time, they had the license. They knew it was Tyreek Hill. Hauled it out. Stood him, and he started to bark at him. You know, he said, take me to jail. And all the while this is going on, he had dialed a Dolphins official and said, they're arresting me, they're arresting me. Before I ever got out of the car, they're arresting me.
I'm a victim.
So at that point in time, the police really got angry. So they forced him down on the pavement, and he's a big, strong guy. Yeah. It took three of them to control him, and they finally handcuffed him, and then he wouldn't sit down, and they finally got him to sit on the curb. And all the time then, he's barking at him. And then all the time, they're really upset at him. So then a couple of the Dolphin players on the way to the players' entrance at the stadium stopped. They walked up. They knew it was Tyreek Hill. They tried to defuse it, and the officer stopped them and said, don't enter the scene. And they said, we're teammates. Let's calm this down. And they threatened to handcuff those guys, and then those guys wound up leaving. So at the end of the day, this turns really ugly. At the end of the day, Tyreek is wrong, A, for speeding, B, for no seatbelt, C, refusing to follow request of the police officers. But they're wrong for three guys accosting a guy who they knew was an NFL player and treating him the way they did. Now, I'm going to defend the police because we have so many cases in which police officers go to a car to look at a traffic situation, and the guy doesn't follow what they request, and the guy rolls it down and pulls a gun and shoots a cop. There's a lot of that's gone on in our society. The distrust between the people and the police officers there. They have to fear for their lives every time they make a traffic stop because you don't know. So Tyreek is wrong, dead wrong. And then he does a post-game press conference. He's pulling the race card out. You know, what if I wasn't Tyreek Hill? Insinuating I'd probably be a dead man, a dead black man. You know, and then the police responded. He absolutely refused to do anything that we asked, and that's why it became a physical confrontation. I'd like to see this go away. He keeps upping the ante. Now, yesterday he said that police officer who accosted me beat me like a dog. Well, I didn't see any punches. All I saw was a guy who wouldn't cooperate, who was forced to the pavement, who was handcuffed. Now he's asking for Torres, the lead officer, to be fired, to be terminated. And now Dolphin players are talking about this is how we are treated, driving while black. So, I mean, it's just a really ugly case. I'll ask you, John Riley, is Tyreek to blame? Should the police have acted the way they did, or do they have a right to protect themselves with somebody that's not complying with what they request, a guy who had broke the law by doing that kind of speed in a zone that had a lot of pedestrians around it?
Well, this is clearly not a clear-cut case. There's a lot of blame to go around here. Now, clearly Tyreek was wrong. What the hell are you doing speeding 76 miles an hour right in front of the stadium where your fans that are there to pay money to see you play. Why are you putting them in danger? That was an idiot move. And then, when you get pulled over by the cops, like it or not, you're going to have to cooperate, Now, on the other side of it, there's a long history of police brutality and the driving while black is a real thing. And there's been a lot of other cases of police brutality. Was this that sort of a case? Well, when they drag you out of the car, it kind of feels that way. But then again, he was resisting cooperation. So then it just escalates and it turns into this testosterone battle. And then they see the driver's license. Oh, Tyreek Hill, this is the star player on the Dolphins. They're probably thinking, well, he's not above the law, and they probably start trying to crack down even harder to prove their point. And then it gets emotional and they needed their teammates to come in and diffuse it because this didn't need to escalate at all for either side. But it's just like a ego-driven kind of a thing. And I think, to your point, I think some police officers are a little bit careful, scared, because they've seen police officers get shot. But sometimes you think, man, they just go way too far.
I don't know. Torres, the officer, called to apologize for what happened, and Tyreek refused to take the phone call. And then Tyreek at the Dolphins press conference said he should be fired.
Yeah, why are you doing that? I mean, that's irrelevant, whether that guy has a job or not. It's not like he's calling on the Dolphins to fire Tyreek. I mean, that's just a distraction. I think Tyreek's trying to make him sound like he's the spectacle, the victim. Oh, woe is me, when he was the one that committed the first foul.
And the other sidebar piece of this equation is his track record, his history.
Yes.
He got thrown out of college for choking his pregnant girlfriend.
Oh, wow.
He's been involved in 2 other domestic issues. He's been sued 3 times by 3 women, a.k.a. baby mamas in South Florida, not taking care of the kids. So there's a whole bunch of sidebar things. And then he goes on at the press conference Monday, and he says, my mama did not raise me to be treated that way. Or my grandpa, da-da-da. Yeah, but you're also involved in also the junk off the field. So tough call. I just wish he'd apologized to it. Should have never happened.
Yeah.
I hope they learn from it. I hope it never happens again. But that's got to come from Tyreek not to make bad decisions.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. I think both sides would apologize appropriately for the part where they were wrong. And I think that would be good, not just to diffuse this situation, but it could show an evolution in kind of this whole notion of, police behavior, and driving while black, all of that, to try to minimize that going forward. This is a focal point issue for that particular topic, and we're having to talk about it now.
Okay. You got an opinion on this whole Tyreek Hill incident? Side with the player, side with the police, stand in the middle. How do you solve this situation? Join us in Fans Forum. We sure would value your opinion. We go from that, John, we got a lot of other NFL notebook things.
Yeah, NFL headlines. Look at this list here.
Speaking of trouble, let's talk about Deshaun Watson. Now he's got more problems off the field in Cleveland. He's not playing well, does not look like he's totally healthy, seems to be a shadow of the player he used to be. Deshaun Watson has now been sued by another woman in Houston. This will be the 25th sexual misconduct lawsuit against the former
25th?
Houston Texans. Well, there were 24 when he was in Houston, this whole masseuse situation. He settled 23 of the 24 out of court. Another woman has come forward and said he raped me in my apartment in 2020. Now, it's kind of hard for me to believe that she waited this long to file the suit. Tyreek's lawyer is of the opinion that statute of limitations expired. The NFL is now interceded. They're going to interview the woman, and they're going to interview the woman's lawyer. That lawyer, by the way, is the one that represented all the other women that settled these cases finally out of court. The big question I have is that Deshaun Watson has already been suspended by the NFL for 11 games and was fined $5 million. So I don't think you can go back and discipline him a second time for an incident that occurred in that window, which he's already been disciplined for. Mm-hmm. So that bears some watching as we go there. At the end of the day, this guy looks like a social deviant. This guy really looks like a slug. This guy's got $230 million guaranteed, and right now he's a poor player And I think the general consensus is what a bad citizen this guy is. So that's the Deshaun Watson story. Adrian Peterson, great running back, Minnesota Vikings. Adrian Peterson, his home and all of his possessions seized by the sheriff's department in North Texas because he refused to pay money owed in bankruptcy claims. He's got debts with all these banks he's refused to pay back. He says, I'm bankrupt. This guy made $102 million in his career and has got no money. And he owes $12.5 million to a bank, which won a court case against him. So on Monday and Tuesday, they went in and seized all of his property and his possessions and his cars and everything because he's just refused to do that. Speaking of being a bum, how could you make all that money and be bankrupt? So that's another weird story. NFL football, Thursday night football. Got Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins.
Hey.
Oh, Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa. That's going to be fun. Problem is, Buffalo doesn't have a lot around that quarterback. I think Buffalo's in trouble as a team, but this will be great, a great Thursday night game. Raider Nation, do you have Ryan Tannehill's phone number in Tennessee?
What's the area code there, Lee?
They got a huge problem with the Raiders. They're going to start Gardner Minshew this weekend in Baltimore. Gardner did not play well against the Chargers at all. And this continues to be a history of Gardner can throw a touchdown, Gardner will throw a pick, Gardner will fumble. Gardner takes a lot of quarterback sacks. I don't know. He looks like he's overwhelmed by this level of play. Maybe they should go to Aiden O'Connor, or maybe they should call Ryan Tannehill. Try to solve the quarterback problem there. So they've got a real issue there with the Raiders. Browns in Jacksonville. Somebody is going to be 0-2 by Sunday, and that's not going to be good. And obviously the Browns played really poorly at home, and they got stomped by the Cowboys. You got Deshaun Watson, who doesn't look like he's the same player. There is no Nick Chubb. Their secondary has been chewed up by injuries. Jaguars are coming off an opening day loss. They are desperate. They do not want to be 0-2 to start the season. Browns might be 0-2 because a lot of people in Cleveland really dislike that owner, Jimmy Haslam. They'd like him to be 0-2. There's a lot of people now, I think, are turning on Deshaun Watson for who he is and how he's acted. Last item, NFL TV ratings. Amazing. First weekend of the season, John. All-time record ratings, NFL.
Really?
First weekend, 21 million average viewership each game. 21 million. Thursday Night Football, Kansas City, Baltimore last Thursday, 29.2. Fox, Tom Brady's debut, Dallas, Cleveland, 23.8 million viewers. Sunday Night Football, Rams, Detroit, that overtime shootout, 22.8 million. The only one that didn't have great numbers was subscription. Peacock, Friday Night Football, Green Bay, Philly, they drew 14.3 million. All-time record, though, for the first weekend of the season, 21 million.
Wow.
Okay. The floor is yours to talk about the quarterback, the bankrupt running back, and anything and everything in the NFL.
All right. First of all, Deshaun Watson, I'm just disappointed with his play on the field. I mean, this is a sports podcast. On that level, I'm disappointed in this man. But, 24 previous accusations, and now this is number 25. Obviously, there's a pattern, but it's the same lawyer, so it might be a little bit of an ambulance chasing kind of thing here. But in the end, this is not boding well for his athletic performance. All these distractions in his head. It's just a mess. Adrian Peterson, when I first saw the name up on the board, I was thinking, remember that caning controversy where he was beating his kid? So this guy's had a checkered past. But how in the hell do you earn $104 million and not have anything left? I mean, you got poor advice. And you see this with these guys. They make a ton of money, and you think, God, get a financial, consultant to help you put some of it away and set it up safely. He didn't. Bills tonight, the game tonight, Bills Dolphins, where is it?
Miami.
Okay, so we get to save the other game till later in the season when it gets cold in Buffalo. That'll be good. I'm hoping Josh Allen has people to throw to. The Raiders are a mess. The social media has been lit up with all the Raider verticals that we've been doing. We're going to talk more about that. But generally speaking, Raider fan is not happy with Gardner Minshew, and they're worried. Browns, again, I don't really know what to make of them. The Nielsen TV ratings, I was just doing the math in my head for the traditional networks like Fox and CBS, et cetera. That sounds like it's 7 to 8% of the total population of America. Nobody does that except like when you get Super Bowls or super duper special events, right?
Well, 93 of the top 100 television shows last year, NFL football.
Yeah, it's just incredible. I mean, it's just amazing. So I think the Peacock numbers, I think people are still trying to struggle on how they're going to subscribe and how do I do it. And a lot of people are like, God damn it, I can't find my football game. And, there's going to be a lot of that, restlessness. But over time, I think that's going to work itself out. But, people in America, they love the NFL and the season started and it's like a big party in America.
Sidebar comment. We didn't really touch bases on this when we did the Monday podcast because there are so many other things to discuss. Tom Brady's debut on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Letter grade C. Speech was halted. His cadence was not very good. You could sense that the play-by-play guy, Kevin Burkhardt, was just feeding him softball questions, and Brady was fouling him off. He didn't do a good job. In essence, what I'm telling you, he was not the glib, wisecracking Tony Romo. He wasn't the insightful, passionate Greg Olsen. Kind of disappointing. To use quarterback lingo, Tom Brady broadcaster needs a lot of reps.
He needs a lot of reps. I think it's funny how you use like a baseball softball analogy to describe a football commentator, fouling them off and getting softball questions. It could be the first time out, maybe a little nerves, a little bit of the yips, but I think he's going to be fine. But Olsen and Romo are very talented at what they do. I mean, Brady's getting this gig because of who he is and, his celebrity status and being one of the greatest football players, if not the best of all time. But as an announcer, jury's still out, and I think they're just hoping his pretty face is going to get ratings.
Well, ratings, but he's got to provide insightful, quick-witted comments.
Yes.
Now, maybe there's an uncomfortable zone there that we have to pay attention to. Maybe he's not going to feel comfortable talking about how really crappy Deshaun Watson looks or plays or responds. That's what was the case last week in that Dallas-Cleveland game he brought. You got to broach the subject. You don't have to condemn the guy, but you need to broach why he is acting the way he is and why he's playing so poor and his footwork, blah, 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 blah. He didn't do any of that. He just didn't feel comfortable at all. And his cadence was slow. And, color analyst, thought process, quick, insightful, be glib, be funny, be pompous. Be something. Don't be what Tom Brady was last week.
Now, back in the day when you did the Chargers radio broadcast, did you and Laszlovic and
Pat Curran,
you guys had like a chemistry, a rhythm, but did you discuss these things like, before you went on the air and say, okay, I'm going to do this and you can do that?
No, I didn't feed them anything. What I said was, I will paint the picture, the play. Laz, Pat, you color it in. Say what you want. Make it quick, to the point. Get it back to me as they're coming back to line of scrimmage for the next snap. And they did, and we kind of hit it really well. And for the most part, it worked pretty well. And then when Pat left, we had Chet Forty for 1 year, and he was different because he had never done that before, and his commentary got a little bit elongated, and he tended to repeat himself, and I tapped him on the shoulder during the timeout and said, okay, you just made that reference 2 comments ago, so you don't need to make that reference again. Just paint it a little bit different. He got better and better. And Philly Billy Warndell was just loud. So, we had a good team, and everybody had their space. There wasn't a fight of, I want my airtime, damn it. Well, I'm going to give you your airtime. Just give me good content within your window.
What's your take on the 3-man booth versus the 2-man booth?
Well, it's interesting because I did 3 here right from the beginning as the voice of the Chargers, and we hit the floor and we got along really well. And, I was different than Laszlovic, and Pat Curran was really different than anybody. So it was playing off each other. It was really different. I went to Seattle. I did the Seahawks for 3 years, and I was paired with their former wide receiver, their color analyst, Steve Rabel, who was really good. He was glib and he was pointed. We had a third guy, a sideline guy. I had never worked with a sideline guy. Ron Callan, great guy. And we would go down to him on the sidelines, and, he knew he had 15 seconds. And this is what just happened on the sidelines. There's been a fight on the sidelines between our defensive tackle and the defensive line coach. They got to solve this right now, but there was a shoving incident there. Back to you up top, Lee. And so he got it quick. And so we developed that 2+1 was really dynamic, just like the 3 in the booth here.
Well, all the sideline reporters now are beautiful women, and Scott Kaplan.
Yeah.
Is Kaplan still doing that?
No. I think he left a couple of years ago.
Okay.
So that's the latest around the NFL from TV ratings, etc. If you watch Tom Brady, I'd be interested in you on the fans forum. Just give us a reaction to everything that's gone on there. From NFL football, next topic.
We're going to go to Boulder, Colorado. Coach Prime back in the news.
Oh, what did I tell you 3 weeks ago, John Riley? Remember the press conference where Coach Prime refused to answer questions from the CBS reporter? And then the follow-up press conference, he refused to take any questions from the columnists of the Boulder Daily Camera newspaper and the Denver Post.
The media has the last bullet
in the gun.
Yeah.
Okay. So this war of words is just continuing between Coach Prime, and this is after they got their butts run off the field by lowly Nebraska. This is not Nebraska from the Tom Osborne days. It's not Nebraska from the Devaney days or the Frank Solich. This has been down on their luck, Nebraska, and they just pummeled them. I think at one point it was 28-0. Shedeur Sanders just got blasted again because they can't block. So anyhow, their Monday press conference after the really bad loss to Colorado, I think it was 28-3 or 28-6. Columnist writes, "I just sat at the press conference with your 2-9 coach." Peter King then wrote, "He refused to do an interview with me because I refused to refer to him as Coach Prime. I wanted to address him as Dion." And then another columnist wrote, "Mr. Hollywood, all the glitz is gone. The revolving door roster that you've given us no longer works. And if you take away the bootlicker friends you have on the sidelines, what have you got left? You're 2-9 since last season." Like I said, you pick a fight with the media, they are not going to forget it when things are going bad, and things are going bad. And John Riley says,
that Peter King comment catches me by surprise. Why in the heck is that a deal breaker? Now you could question Dion. Why does he have this new name, Coach Prime? But if I'm a reporter and a person has changed their name or wants to be referred differently, you just refer to them by the new name. I mean, whether it's a legal name like switching to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or whatever it is. I mean, I'm surprised Peter King didn't say, yeah, whatever, I'll call you Coach Prime.
You don't want to do that. He's not going to bow down to a brand. He just wanted to deal with them, reporter, player.
Right.
Reporter, coach.
But then that's just the way you deal with them. You're going to deal with them in this Coach Prime persona. Now, does he still have Warren Sapp on the sidelines with him?
He's got all the guys. He's got a huge entourage of, quote, as one of the columnists said, your Hollywood friends.
But are these like an entourage, like a posse, or are these like coaches on the Colorado?
He's got a couple of NFL coaches on his staff, but he's got a posse that's around him all the time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, do we know like how we would, what's the description, what's the identity of Colorado football? I mean, can we describe it?
Yeah, it's 2-9.
It's 2-9. But there's no persona there. It's just Dion.
That's right. It's all about Dion.
Yeah.
Dion coaching the sidelines, Dion with his bling, Dion with his cowboy hat and his jersey, and all the damn commercials on the telecast are about Coach Prime. 2-9, pal. We'll see if they can fix it. And now he lost his son. Shedeur Sanders has gone with a fractured forearm, and he just had surgery, and Shedeur is beat up. Interesting storyline to see how this season's going to go. And I said this a year ago. I said it before the season started this year. There's a lot of coaches going to run up scores on this guy.
And it's the Big 12, which is different than last year in the Pac whatever.
I concur. All right, we go from that. Last topic on the table before I get the fans forum.
USA Soccer, new coach, big payday.
They signed him. Unbelievable amount of money. Mauricio Pochettino, introduced at a press conference tomorrow in New York City. Former head coach Chelsea, Hotspur, and in Germany. He's being paid a record $6 million a year. Mauricio, great track record of developing young players, notably in the English Premier League. A hedge fund operator by the name of Kenneth Griffin, who's become a huge donor to USA Soccer, evidently forked over $4 million of the $6 million to Pochettino. It's 3 times what Emma Hayes is making, the newly hired head coach of the women's side. She was at Chelsea. Phenomenal accomplishments in the English Women's League. She's making $2 million per season. The players led by Christian Pulisic have stood up and said, we're turning the page. We may have liked Greg Berhalter. We're turning the page. This guy is a winner. Coach him up. So we'll see now as he flips the corner. They lost a friendly to Canada. They tied New Zealand 1-1 in the 89th minute. So they're really looking to gain traction. And Mauricio's got himself quite a resume, so it's going to be his team, his program, his way. But he's got a history of developing young players. And outside of Christian Pulisic, what does Team USA have?
Not much.
A lot of young guys.
Yeah, there you
can
go.
Run and score.
Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating to see his impact on Gio Reyna, Balogun, and all the other young guys on that side. Okay, those topics on the table. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. They've been with us since day one. If you've got projects at home, at work, back patio, out by the pool, the picnic area, think DIXIELINE Lumber. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego and the new one that's just opened up at Dana Point. DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. John Riley, Fans Forum, the floor is yours. Should I go under the table? Should I hold on to the table? Go ahead.
Okay, let's go here. We'll start with Callan. He goes, afternoon, gents. At the rate we're going, we can just merge the Mountain West, the Big West, the West Coast, and the Pac-12 into one giant conference. Realignment, in my opinion, is causing more harm than good.
Oh, it's chaotic. It's unbelievable. I mean, John David Wicker's comment to me that we were at death's doorstep with the dissolve of the Pac-12, with the troubles with the transfer portal and all that. And he said, we were just not going to grieve. We were going to just go to work and try to solve things day to day to day. And all of a sudden now they're a member of, quote, the Pac-12, but it's not the same Pac-12. I do like John Riley's idea. You know, once every year and a half he comes up with something on this podcast that's really novel. Hey, if I'm the Pac-12, I'm calling Gonzaga. And I'm calling St. Mary's, and I'm calling USF and say, would you like to come join us as a basketball-only member? That'd be kind of cool because I still think nationwide the Pac-12 logo and brand carries clout. Now, the people on the Eastern Seaboard may not be paying attention to the fact that 10 of them left to go other places. But you mentioned Pac-12, and they think Conference of Champions and all the great athletes. Your idea, that's pretty cool. The rest of it, I don't know where they're going to go at the rest of these schools. And, you know, I've been told that Cal and Stanford may be thinking we made a mistake, so that would get them to 8. But I still think you need more names. But where those names are going to come from, I don't know.
I don't know either. This is, I think, a great time for San Diego State. And to your point, death's doorstep. I knew it was bad when you would hear the Aztec Mesa Foundation. We were crying that they were poor. They didn't have enough money for the NIL, for not just the men's basketball program, but for all of the sports. And you're thinking, we can't raise enough money here in San Diego. They needed to do something to flip it. And I think this is going to put them on a good trajectory. I'm really positive here.
But the only arguing point to that is if they've scuffled so much with the putting money into that pot for NIL for not just basketball, which deserves it, but football, you got to pay it to keep your players.
Yeah.
And you got baseball to trying to get back up on its feet. They're going to need even more money going to the Pac-12.
But donors are more likely to donate, I think, if it's, like you say, the Pac-12 brand. They're not going to want to donate to a football program that goes place Wyoming.
Okay. Callum, it's interesting to see where this goes. I guess he's saying maybe this is a thumbs up. You think this is a good day at San Diego State historically. Next one.
Okay, let's go here to Chris. Hey, Saw, what the hell happened to Deshaun Watson? Just years ago, he was assaulting the record books, was a potential MVP. Now he looks like a rookie who doesn't want to be out there. Sure, his off-field stuff has rubbed people the wrong way, but now it looks like there's no chance for a happy ending in Cleveland.
He suffered a really serious shoulder injury. He suffered a torn labrum. I mean, he got plastered. And he just does not look like the same quarterback right now. And his delivery looks different. His ability to make decisions and get the ball in the right spot looks really different. And, you know, they got all kinds of injury problems. They don't have their bookend tackles. Both their tackles are really good players, and they can't keep them on the field, Jed Willis and Jack Conklin. And they're trying to live off Myles Garrett in a really great defense. But he looks like a shell of the player that he was before. And to me, it's almost like there's a fear factor. I've watched some of the video. It's like he's afraid to run. If he runs, he's going to get blasted. If he gets blasted, is he going to re-injure the shoulder? I don't think he's in a good place from a football perspective. And I'll tell you what, I know he's not in a good place right now with this next lawsuit. But the NFL just announced, just as we were coming on the air, that they are going to hold a hearing, and this woman and the lawyer, Tony Bisbee, who represented all the other women in the sexual misconduct cases and won them all, I don't think they can penalize him a second time because he's already been penalized and suspended for 11 games and fined $5 million.
Well, I just remember when he went to the Browns, we were all wondering, like, what the hell's going on here? Because it was such a big contract, had that guaranteed money. I mean, can you refresh my memory on the chronology here? Because wasn't he a quarterback in the ACC?
He's at Clemson.
At Clemson. Then he went to Houston. And
became a star.
And he was a star there, but didn't he get hurt or something for a while before he went to Cleveland? I'm trying to remember.
No, his contract was coming up. And then right in the middle of all this came the sexual misconduct things that spread out over a year and a half with 24 masseuse trainers.
Wow.
And sex and all that stuff. And then they sued him. And then they got together collectively under one lawyer, massive lawsuit. And then he settled virtually all of them, wrote checks.
Wow.
Make it go away. Now this one surfaced out of nowhere. Then he goes to Cleveland, and he gets really badly hurt. I mean, he tore his labrum.
That's when
really
he got hurt.
bad. Yes.
That's when he got hurt.
And he only played half of his first season because of the 11-game suspension. He comes back the second year and gets hurt. He misses the whole second half of that season, and he didn't look like the same quarterback now.
But when Cleveland traded for him, it was already all the news about the misconduct was in the public, right?
Yes. Oh, yes.
So it makes you wonder why in the hell they made that big deal to get him in the first place.
And it makes you wonder why the hell the owner would give him $230 million guaranteed that nobody had ever gotten before.
Exactly.
And why you give away 3 number 1 draft picks and 6 picks in all.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. And I think, if you're trying to build an NFL franchise in your town, you want players with good character, unless you're the Oakland Raiders.
That's where we are with Deshaun Watson. We'll see what happens this Sunday. Boy, they don't want to be 0-2 to start the season. Next question.
Okay, let's go here to Danny, and he kind of poked me on my shoulder, remind me of what I was forgetting before. UNLV and Utah State seem like the next 2 teams to join the six-pack, but do you think that the six-pack will also ask Cal and Stanford to come back, or even ask the Arizona schools?
I don't think the Arizona schools are coming back. I think that they feel comfortable. They used to be in the old WAC, which had ties to the Midlands. So I think Arizona State, Arizona, gone forever, with Colorado and with Utah. I think Cal and Stanford are the ones that they're probably looking at on the East Coast and say, this is stupid what you guys did. And by the way, you did it and you're taking a discount. And you're not getting the equal rights fees, et cetera. I think Golden Bears Cardinal might be the first 2. I've been told that Vegas has all types of issues, including leadership in the president's office. It's in Vegas. It's glitzy. It's a destination point for big events. They don't give a crap about UNLV Rebels football. And Jerry Tarkanian was decades and decades ago, and they don't support basketball either. Utah State, not much of a difference between them and Nevada and Wyoming. They're all kind of cut from the same cloth and very, very small markets, very small NIL pool. So, New Mexico, they're all going to have to live their life, and that'll be that conference. It's not going to be the same conference emotionally because there is no flag carrier, no Boise State, no San Diego State, and to a degree, no Fresno. And those are the ones that really brought national attention to the Mountain West.
Yeah, this is a fascinating development because we're struggling to find other schools that we could fit in the profile. Like 2/3 of America lives east of the Mississippi River. And so of the remaining...
And the other 3/4 live in the state of Texas.
Exactly. So there's not much left. And then you start thinking about other schools on the West Coast, and so many of them don't even have football programs. So it's hard to even come up with other universities to fill in the gaps. Yes. I think in the end, it's not going to be a Pacific conference. It's going to be a Pacific, Midlands, Rocky Mountain, the western half of the United States conference.
We'll do some research and see what else is out there. I don't think there's anything out there, and I don't think they want to get into a geographic thing that, West Virginia's in the Big 12. You know how far Morgantown, West Virginia is from the rest of the schools in Big 12? Where are we going to go? Who are you going to take from the Eastern Seaboard and make them part of the Pac-12? You can't do that.
No, well, you can't call it the Pac-12.
Exactly.
You know, even if you were able to get 12 teams.
On we go.
On we go here. Let's go to, Thup Power, and says 76-35. That says it all.
Well, it does. Well, he's talking about Deion Sanders.
No, he's talking about Tyreek Hill.
I'm sorry. Tyreek Hill. That's what I meant. He's talking about Tyreek Hill. That's item 1. Roll your window down. No response. That's item 2. On the cell phone, they're arresting me. He hadn't even gotten out of the car yet. And then item 3, haul him out, get him on the ground, handcuff him, beat me like a dog. I didn't see anybody punch him, although I thought the force should not have occurred. So that's where we are. It all starts with him, and he's never let up. He did his post-game press conference Sunday, then he talked about it Monday, then he talked about it again yesterday. And every time he talks about it, he throws another match onto this fire, kind of reigniting the gasoline. It's all tinted with racial incidents. He's wrong. The police were wrong. But you have to understand what the police face on a daily basis every time there's a traffic stop. Because guys roll windows down and shoot cops because they're bad guys in the car. So now cops are dealing with this, and you got somebody who won't cooperate. What are you doing?
Well, that does happen where a motorist will pull out a gun on a cop, but that's got to be really rare. I mean, that's like a suicide move right there if you're going to pull a gun on a cop at a traffic stop. So sometimes I wonder if the police sort of overblow that, to justify this behavior, because it's almost like a paranoia that they have and you've seen other cases. I mean, we can go back to George Floyd and a lot of other things where people have literally been snuffed out by the police. So,
exactly.
So there's a legitimate reason for people to be concerned about the police brutality. I just think as a nation, we just need to evolve better on this. I think our police need to be more well-trained. I think we need to see, police that are in as good a shape as some of these NFL players so they can handle people without using deadly force. So there's a lot that can be improved on here. But in the end, you're right. Tyreek Hill caused the problem. You don't drive 76 around a stadium with all the fans around there. And then, the cops took it too far.
Okay, next question.
Okay, let's go here to Greg. He says, Lee, what do you see as the next possible Major League sports franchise to come to San Diego? Hockey, football, American League T? What's he saying?
Football, there's no stadium. Until we get a stadium built, I don't think the NFL is going to look at this marketplace. And who's going to pay for the stadium and then pay for a franchise? At this point, there seems to be no idea for expansion in the U.S. I just think, unfortunately, we've lost our NFL team because of the greed of the owner. I don't think we're going to get one back. Stan Kroenke, they continue to work behind the scenes. They've not turned the first shovel of dirt for a new-look sports arena. But his ideology was, I'd sure like to see the NHL here. Now, I don't know whether they'd relocate a franchise here once they got the new arena built, but that's not going to happen 2 weeks from Tuesday. That's way down road. But we know this. Kroenke is a doer. You look at all the things he's accomplished in the course of his career. He's a pretty impressive guy. So hockey might be. Basketball, NBA, nah, I don't see that happening. I hate to say it. We do have a great baseball franchise that has kind of put its arms around the community. I just don't know that we're going to find another franchise to move here in another sport. San Diego is kind of positioned now in a very tight fit in Southern California. You got the ocean, you got Mexico, and you got everything, Dodger Stadium and all that to the north. I just don't know that we're going to be able to get another franchise here in any of those sports. Soccer, yes, we've already got that coming. But in terms of big three, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, they can't even fill up Snapdragon Stadium for an Aztecs game. Mm-hmm. So San Diego has so many fans or so many people that are from somewhere else, right? So, if we had an NBA franchise, like when we had the Clippers, they didn't draw all that well. And, and at the same time, the people that show up are usually fans of the other team. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if I were to say stack rank it, I think the NFL's never coming back. The NHL, I think, is a maybe. I think there's maybe an outside shot of the NBA coming, but in the end, I think San Diego needs to think differently on this, and I like the MLS team coming to town, and I love San Diego State being a bigger deal in this community.
Do you want me to throw the half glass of water at you now or later? I thought about this driving in from the press conference. Pac-12, Aztecs. Yeah. The Aztecs, who had 18,000 per game for their first two. That included 5,000 free tickets for students in the student section. Mm-hmm. So in essence, they had 12,000 paid customers.
Yeah. Well, their prices are still too high.
Well, I concur. But, so we're big time. We're in a Pac-12, and you're getting 12,000 walking in the door. My alma mater drew 19,000 in Mid-American Conference opener last week at Ohio U. Mm-hmm. 19,000. And they weren't freebies.
Yeah, but you guys don't have much else going on in that part of the world, right?
True.
I mean, here people are going to the beach. They're having a great time, enjoying all of San Diego. I just wonder, do you think the Pac-12 will re-emerge as a Power 5 conference? Because if it's not, then it's, to your point, it's just Mountain West 2.0.
Yeah. Somebody has to sales pitch me and convince me, and I don't want somebody accusing me walking around with the glass half full. They think there is great potential with TV partners and all that. But if this is all we're going to have, the Cougars and the Beavers and the 4 refugees that they stole from the Mountain West, and then whoever else we add is 7 and 8.
Well, if they made it a Power 5 conference, I'm certain the attendance would go up, and you probably have a lot better teams coming through here too.
You'll have to argue with me about that to convince me. Okay, let's move on. Next question.
All right, let's go here to Manny. He goes, hey, I don't feel bad for the Cleveland Browns. Those idiots hired Paul DePodesta, and look how bad he ruined the Dodgers.
Yeah, he's a great X and O's and a creative genius and analytics and all that, but has there been any success in Cleveland? No. So here they are. I got one of my really good friends lives there, and he worked in media, and he's got season tickets, and he says those people are just really peeved at the Haslams and just the whole thing of what Cleveland Browns is. It's just been so long since they've been really, really good. And Bernie Kosar was a long time ago. And at the end of the day, they all got screwed by John Elway on the drive or the fumble or whatever it was. So it's really tough in Cleveland right now.
I mean, you would have to go back to the 80s, right, when the Browns were like a serious team, right?
I think their last championship was 1964.
Yeah, something like that. Mm-hmm. But they were a perennial playoff team in the 80s.
The Cardiac Kids. Oh, Brian Sipe. From here.
Yeah.
San Diego State Aztec. But
and then Kosar.
Yeah, they were there for a chunk of time, and they were really good, and it just hadn't been the same. And then the franchise moved. Then went to Baltimore.
Oh, yeah.
And they put the expansion team in, and just it's been a long haul with a lot of different quarterbacks, and now they got this guy at quarterback, social misfit.
When you think of the Cleveland Browns, you think of like one of the old school NFL teams.
Jim Brown, Lou Groza.
Yeah, like that kind of vibe, and it was weird when they moved out. And they moved out in the middle of the night, like you were saying before.
Exactly. Next question, fans forum.
Okay, let's go to Roy. And he says, that's what happens when pro athletes feel entitled. The law does not apply to them. Cooperate and move on. Address any problems with your lawyer. Quit resisting.
Yeah, and quit antagonizing the storyline that you created. He's talking about Tyreek Hill. We'll see where it goes, see if it calms down. The NFL's not going to discipline him. These are 2 minor citations, but he's made it such a big thing by invoking the race card. Next topic.
All right, let's go to some of our social media friends. We'll get them involved too. And, okay, let's talk a little here about Johnny Hockey. This is from Phyllis. He says, just checking in from Manitoba. I'm an NHL fan, but Johnny was an amazing guy to watch on the ice, and his genuineness always stood out to me. No matter where he was, he always gave 110% to whatever he was doing. It was known for his smile. The NHL world has lost one of the best, and hopefully we can all carry his legacy forward by being good to the people around us.
Yeah, I got to watch some of the video of the actual funeral service. One of my friends in Canada sent it to me. It was amazing. They had the caskets of the 2 brothers, Johnny and Matthew, side by side, and they were draped. Calgary Flames jersey, Columbus Blue Jackets jersey, their Boston College jerseys. It was just an emotional thing. Gary Bettman, the president of the NHL, came to the funeral. Brian Burke, legendary general manager, former player agent, he was at the funeral. They had players, I think, from 8 different hockey clubs who flew in from all different places to celebrate his life. And I think we talked briefly about it last week. Somebody came up with the idea, let's start a GoFundMe campaign, because they left behind a widow and 6 little kids between them. And the one wife just announced she's pregnant, too. They raised $660,000, I think, in the first 12 hours. Now, I don't know how much higher it's gone then, but I mean, the NHL players and management people, college people, just poured money into this GoFundMe on their behalf. So, and the thing that made Johnny Hockey cool, every time you saw him on video, he was smiling because he was also scoring goals. So it's going to be interesting. And one of his former teammates, who's in Montreal now, is going to wear his uniform jersey number 13 in his honor with the Montreal Canadiens. So,
very cool.
Yeah, really cool. So really sad time.
Imagine if you're Johnny Hockey's sister, the one that got married.
Yeah.
You know, and this is always going to be hanging over their marriage for the rest of their lives. It's kind of weird.
Well, it's a tragic death in the way it happened, the time of its career happened, and then you staple onto that. It happened hours before they were supposed to take part in her wedding ceremony, and they canceled the ceremony. They're moving it to a down later in the calendar.
Good.
But, just a tragic time. Next question.
Okay, here we'll talk to some Raiders. This is in questioning about the whole Gardner Minshew bit, and he goes, "Man, you hate us. Everything you said, it's true, but you say it so proudly." Shaking my head.
I know what I know, and I'm telling you what I know. You don't have to buy what I know. But at the end of the day, scoreboard, baby, the scoreboard does not lie. You are what your record says you are, according to Bill Parcells.
Right.
So they have to solve the quarterback issue. You know, I talk glowingly about the arrival of Christian Wilkins. Huge difference maker with Mad Max. And what happens? The two defensive ends on the other side both went down with knee injuries, both on IR. That's a big issue. You know, and I talked about, is Minshew the right guy? And have you replaced your running back, Josh Jacobs, whom you let go? I praised the two tight ends, Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. They got pieces, but geez, you got to have a quarterback. And they had drafted Derek Carr out of Fresno State, and he gave him 8 or 9 years. I thought it was really competitive, but they didn't win a ton. But that was an organizational deficiency, not so much on Derek Carr. He's down in New Orleans, where he'll probably finish out his career. They just have to find a way to get a marquee quarterback. And I am not going to pile on Cisco, but the scoreboard does not lie. It's not that I hate you. You got 2 bleeping winning seasons in 21 years. What world are you living in, sales pitching me and John and all these people on our podcast, The Greatness of the Raiders? Where? When? 2 winning seasons in 21 years. Have not won a playoff game since 2002, baby. Okay. End of my statement and preach. I turn you over to my assistant.
My assistant. Well, I first of all, I love following all the reaction in social media because they're like, "Oh, you're a Raider hater, or you're a Dodger lover." Or everyone's trying to figure out who you're rooting for.
My wife included.
Yeah, and they know obviously your history with the Chargers and San Diego, and they always think different things. But in response to that, I do want to circle back. There was another live stream comment that Roy brought up that's relevant here, and he says, "Hacksaw, I've watched you for many years, and probably we're the same age. What I greatly appreciated about your radio show was your unbiased take. You were not a homer and called it the way it is. Thank you."
Thank you very much. You just try to play it down the line.
Yeah.
And I understand that sometimes I will offend somebody on this side, and sometimes I'll upset somebody over here. But at the end of the day, if you're keeping score, I'm just telling you what is. You know, you're a Raider hater. Well, dude, I'm not the one that said 2 winning seasons in 21 years and has, drafted all these criminal element guys that are out of the NFL. I'm just reporting what is and expressing an opinion. So that's where I am.
Telling it like it is.
Howard Cosell.
Yeah, but here, let's do a follow-up on that one. Here, where is it? This is a Padre comment from 1950 Chevy Deluxe. He says, "You called it a house of cards just a few weeks ago, and now you're praising the very general manager you wanted fired."
1950 Chevy Belvedere. Yeah, that was pretty cool with the great shift on
3 on the tree?
Yeah, 3 on the tree. End of the day. That's back when they were underachieving. That was kind of at midseason. What are you talking about, Chevy? You were the one walking around pissed off after they lost that series to Colorado and then lost to Miami. Do you remember that? Now, they're playing really well. They've come together. And the end of the day, it was like a house of cards back then because they weren't winning. It was just a repeat the first half of this season to the repeat of last year's season of underachievement, and I'm just dealing with what the scoreboard tells me they are. Now, the general manager, he went out and got some players at the trade deadline. Best bullpen in baseball right now. And the acquisitions, the in-season acquisitions of getting Peralta and getting Solano, it's kind of changed everything. So he's done a good job, and now those guys are all contributing. So am I cheering now? Yeah, I'm cheering the job that and what the franchise has become. But back at the point where I called it a house of cards, dude, they had lost 3 straight to freaking Colorado, last place Colorado, 100 lost Colorado. And you want me to cheerlead for that? Nah, I'm not going to do that.
And it was also on the heels of the 2023 disappointment that we had, but it's just funny. I mean, the Padres situation, they have been Jekyll and Hyde throughout the whole year. But, you have been praising them and dissing them, but maybe that is the Howard Cosell bit, right?
What have you done for me lately? I'm just commenting on what I see.
What you see.
I'm sitting here right now. I'm really concerned that Michael King and Dylan Cease are gassed. And I just don't know what kind of long-term innings we're getting out of Darvish. Musgrove looks like Musgrove is back. But, boy, going to postseason, they look a little wafer thin right now.
Well, Musgrove's last outing wasn't very good.
I mean, he gave up all those home runs early.
Right.
But he's had a lot more good innings than he's had an odd bad inning.
But you always said, I want accountability, right, when it came to the front office and A.J. Preller.
And he got it. This is what he's done roster-wise for the second half of the season. He's probably saved his job.
He probably has. And not only saved the job, but now you want to make him NL Executive of the Year.
Yeah, him and Schild. Why not? If they finish it with a top wild card spot and then do something postseason, yeah, those guys deserve it.
Yeah, did you watch the game last night? Was kind of weird, wasn't it? I mean, it was so frustrating that that Wu kid was throwing a great ball game. Then Tatis hit the laser missile to break up the perfect game. But it was disappointing to split in Seattle. Now they're going to San Francisco. They got to take at least 2 out of 3.
That's a nameless, faceless roster in San Francisco right now. Now maybe they'll face Blake Snell. But that's a Blake Snell that got pulled in the first inning after throwing 42 pitchers all over the place. So Snell he's Jekyll and Hyde, too.
Well, the Giants have Lamont Wade Jr., You're talking about faceless names. Okay, let's go here. Talk a little more Raider football. I got a couple of Raider comments. This one here is from Joey Aggs, and he says, Smack Saw, another great take. I think the biggest problem with the Raiders organization is that they have had 13 different head coaches since 2001. How can anyone in any organization or business create any kind of success or winning culture if the coach is only there for a year or two? Culture kills vision.
Well, they keep making mistakes on coaches, and then they overpay some of these coaches, and then they fire them and have to eat the contracts of some of these coaches. And, that's not a wealthy franchise. A lot of people don't know. Mark Davis doesn't have a lot of money. I think it's a poorly run franchise. I know there's a lot of glitter. There's a hell of a lot of smoke around them. Some of those people who induce that smoke by what they're doing. But at the end of the day, it's just not a well-run franchise. That's why the NFL did not want the Raiders in Los Angeles. They did not want them to sully up this number 2 market with the way they operated their franchise and the entourage and the people that make it something. I've seen so many videos, John, of the Raider-Charger game and the brawls at SoFi. I mean, they were just horrible. It's like these people showed up drunk looking to pick a fight. Was there a game going on? No problem. Who's the guy I'm going to hit? I saw so many. I bet I saw 10 different videos of really ugly, almost like gang brawls in the seats.
I remember seeing those at Qualcomm Stadium, and they, granted, there are always drunk people doing stupid things, beating each other up at any game, but you had a little more action at a Raider Charger game for sure. And there was just like a beatdown in Petco Park, I think a couple of weeks ago. Was it when the Giants were here? I can't remember. But, this particular deal with the Raiders, when they brought John Gruden back, was it 10 million or 10 years, 100 million? Mm-hmm. Did you like that move at that time?
He was a hot commodity. He had done some good things in Tampa, though I said he did it with Tony Dungy's players. So he came back, and his drafts were miserable. He had 9 top picks over a 3-year run, and all of them washed out. Injuries, bunch of arrests, bunch of guys who couldn't freaking play. And all of a sudden, it came to my mind was, this guy's a TV character. because he's glib and he's good on TV does not mean he's going to be a great head coach. And then the more I dug into it, then the more I realized that, yeah, he did well in Tampa with Tony Dungy's players. And he didn't do anything after that, and he didn't do anything with the Raiders, and then he got involved himself with all this garbage with his emails, got himself fired, and he's suing everybody. And what really bothered me, because at one point I really liked John Gruden as a personality. I mean, I did conference calls with him, and he was glib, and he answered questions, and it was fun. And obviously I enjoyed his work on TV. But then when we found out the depths of all these emails, this racial stuff, and I thought to myself, you wrote that? That's in your heart. That's in your heart. I'm not going to respect you anymore. I don't. And that's why he's never found another job.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, that whole thing when that went down, I think a lot of us were just shocked. Mm-hmm. It was just so, I mean, beyond being racist and ugly, it was just dumb, to put that in an email. But, you go back to, you said Mark Davis doesn't have a whole lot of money. I mean, how in the hell was Al Davis an owner in an NFL franchise? I mean, he was a coach. How did he get enough money to buy a team?
He just had lawyers and people around him that raised money so he could go in. And again, the price of franchises back then when he, quote, bought the Oakland Raiders, who were just a disaster in the early days of the AFL, the prices were minuscule. So he put the money together, and he was a great coach. He knew great coaches, and he had a plan, and his ability to acquire players and people from all walks of life, some good, some really bad, and get them to play. He was bringing guys out of prison. They were successful. But then the game evolved. Then it became not just football and X's and O's. Then it became dollars. Then it became a business. And they were so far behind the power curve in Oakland and even in L.A. from the business perspective, they couldn't keep up. And you go back, if you just Google Oakland Raiders, L.A. Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, year-by-year record, you will be shocked at how many bad seasons they've had in the last 20 years.
Well, that's what you said. Only 2 winning seasons in 21 years. That's mind-blowing.
Since the Super Bowl.
I mean, I can't think of any team in any sport that's been that bad. Can you?
Well, you never follow the Chicago Cardinals and the Bidwells and the St. Louis Cardinals and the Bidwells, and kind of like the Arizona Cardinals and the Bidwells.
Yeah.
And, aside from the greatness of Paul Brown, his son Mike Brown hasn't done a hell of a lot over a long haul. Now, he has recently in Cincinnati with the quarterback Joe Burrow, but there's a long track record there of incompetence, too. So, yeah, there's some really bad run franchises.
Well, we've had a long run here in San Diego of difficult owners and losing records. I'm hoping that we've, turned the corner on that.
You're a Charger fan, right?
Sorta.
Okay.
I'm still kind of a bitter ex, boyfriend that got broken up with.
Well, I was on a talk show in Toronto the other night, and they asked me my thoughts on Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, and I said that's going to be fun to watch, and I think that coach will have great impact on the culture and that quarterback, et cetera. But at the end of the day, they thought this was great. At the end of the day, because, you're talking to the ex-voice of the Chargers who was left behind when the franchise moved, and they screwed 55 years of loyalty. I told the guys in Toronto, I hope Justin Herbert goes 17-0, and I hope Dean Spanos, the owner, goes 0-17. They laughed and they roared. So that's where
it's a great line, but it makes no sense.
There's counseling and medication for that.
I get it.
Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this elongated version of our Thursday podcast. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. If you've never visited DIXIELINE, take a walk through, do a drive-through. You'll be really impressed. And when you got projects, bingo, just think DIXIELINE Lumber. John, weekend 2 NFL games coming up. Final 2 weeks of baseball pennant race, baby, and we got another weekend of college football. So there's a lot to pay attention to because we'll be back in here 1 o'clock Pacific on Monday with the bonus podcast.
So predicted score, Miami, Buffalo tonight?
Oh, my goodness. I think Miami's just got too much firepower. Buffalo's lost a lot of players on defense. I could see Tua maybe winning a shootout 30-24. Okay. I just don't think Josh Allen can play defense. I think Josh Allen can do this thing by himself.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the Bills are like without Stephon Diggs.
Exactly. Hey, we hope you've enjoyed our podcast. Thanks for being with us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.